Marc Berman of the New York Post with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. And Mark, you grew up on Long Island. You have covered the Islanders for the Post in the past. What were the emotions like for you personally and possibly the final game at the Coliseum on Saturday in which the Isles ended up winning that one?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a mixed emotions for everybody. I mean, fans entering the arena in the afternoon after tailgating, they really felt that it was the final time they were going to an Islander game. And, even after the victory, they weren't sure, but it was such a great win. Third period, tie-breaking goal with 9 minutes left by Kuhlman. It was a great game, and I'm telling you, those fans, they left the arena jumping up and down, chanting, hugging. It was an amazing scene, almost like they had won the Stanley Cup. It really was a great day. And if that's the final memory of the Islanders at the Coliseum, a lot of those fans said they'd take it.
Is there a feeling of bitterness from the fans in Long Island, Mark, over them moving out?
There's no question about it. They are very bitter, not so much at Islander ownership as the Nassau County politicians. I covered the Islanders for the Post in the late 90s, and I was doing constant stories on arena negotiations and redevelopment, and it just went on for 15 years, and Nassau County couldn't get it done. Everyone wanted a piece of the action, and ultimately the voters turned it down here in Nassau County. And it was disappointing, and I knew it was 2 years ago when the vote was held, and it was a bad bill that they needed to pass. But the bitterness is at the politicians who did not do enough to save the Islanders from leaving Long Island.
I heard the fans were taking out seats from the arena.
Yeah, well, that was after Game 3.
Okay,
and at least a dozen. And then they beefed up security the other day, and Nassau County Police had a stronger presence. I mean, if they had lost, angry fans with a lot of tailgating going on with beverages. I mean, there was concern there could be a riot situation. Thankfully, everyone left so happy. And I think there was one seat that got broken. But I was told by a security official that was from a fan who was jumping up and down after the tie-breaking goal.
Marc Berman of the New York Post with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. He has been there for the scene at the Coliseum. And then, of course, tonight, Game 7. Doesn't get better than this, Mark. Game 7 of the NHL playoffs, Islanders, Capitals, the emotions and intensity that the fans are feeling off the ice and in the seats. Is this carrying over to this team on the ice, Mark?
Yeah, the sad part is that the Islanders blew home ice advantage in the first round with a couple of bad losses down the stretch. So, Game 7 being in Washington, the Capitals have a pretty strong fan base. They haven't been nearly as loud as the Coliseum fans, but it's going to be tough to win a Game 7 on the road. The Islanders have really enjoyed a great home ice advantage this season. The fans have been incredibly loud. So with a beat-up defensive core, they're definitely the underdogs. They'll need great goaltending from Halleck, but, Holtby in the Capitals' net has been terrific too. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a very tough situation for the Isles.
Mark, traditionally, Alex Ovechkin doesn't show up in big games, so to speak, in the postseason. But you always have to fear and respect and find a way to slow that guy down, especially in the game's biggest stage in a Game 7, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's so skilled, so talented. And, Backstrom, the other center who he usually plays with is so gifted also. They have a very strong set of forwards that I think they've kind of worn the Islanders down a little bit. I think the Islanders won on pure emotion the other day. But, again, they need great goaltending tonight. They need a lucky bounce. I think the Capitals, as Jack Capuano said the other day, listen, the Capitals are the more veteran group from the goalie on out. So, the Islanders are just going to have to, play one of their best games of the season to take Game 7. And, all of New York City and Long Island and even Jersey are looking forward to a potential Islanders-Rangers second round. That would lift this metropolitan area for a couple of weeks.
Marc Berman of the New York Post, is the feeling on your end that the Rangers are sitting at home tonight watching this game, possibly pulling for the Isles because they'd rather play the Islanders than the Capitals?
I think it's the opposite. I think, the Capitals are probably a slightly better team than the Islanders, especially with the Islanders injured on the back line. But I don't think they want to go into the Coliseum. I think they look at the Islanders as a dangerous team playing with nothing to lose. I think it's less risky for them to play the Capitals. Listen, the Ranger fans do get inside the Coliseum and try to limit the home ice advantage, but this is the Coliseum's last stand, so there's definitely going to be, and this season, for the most part, there's been mostly Islander fans in the building.
Marc Berman of the New York Post with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team. Mark, you're going to be at Game 4 between the Nets and the Atlanta Hawks tonight in Brooklyn. Coming off this 91-83 win that the Nets had on Saturday, how much momentum does this team have now? At one time, it looked like they were basically out of this thing. How much of it are they really back in it?
I think they're really back in it because I thought the first two games in Atlanta, the Nets definitely competed. They were in the game down the stretch, more so in Game 2 than Game 1. But, Atlanta has looked ordinary. I think they're not at full strength. Millsap is playing with a bad shoulder, and Horford, too, is limited. He also has a slight injury. They're not getting great production from Teague yet. Corver had a terrible game. He's not going to shoot 1 for 8 tonight, that's for sure. So, they're going to have to hope that, the Atlanta still is under the weather. They're not the 100% club they were during the season when they were the top seed. And they need Deron Williams to be the Deron Williams of 4 years ago, which he obviously has not been.
That's where I was going to go next. Deron Williams. How does he become the Deron Williams of four years ago? We saw a better Deron Williams in Game 3 than we did in 1 and 2. Was it something defensively that Atlanta changed up, or is this all? Do we look at Deron Williams and say, this is all you trying to figure this thing out?
Yeah, I think he's lost a lot of his confidence. I mean, Deron Williams, we used to talk about him as, some scouts thought he was the best point guard in the league 5 years ago. I mean, he was so strong and rugged getting to the basket. I mean, he did it all. Now he can't find his shot at all. Defensively he's still playing okay. But they need him desperately to beat the Hawks in a series. The Hawks are too deep. Brook Lopez and Joe Johnson, they could do only so much. They need that third guy to really step up. And, Game 2, the Nets could have won that game, but Deron Williams missing a wide-open shot, finishes 1 for 7. They need Deron to be the star that he once was. And Lionel Hollins admitted yesterday for the first time, listen, he's not the same player he was a few years ago, but they need him to step up. Just for this series, it would be a great boost for the franchise if they could pull off a shocking upset.
Marc Berman with Armen Levack on 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Marc Berman of the New York Post. He's going to be at Game 4, Hawks Nets tonight. On Saturday, the crowd was very, very tiny at the Barclays Center for a playoff game, Mark. I mean, what's the mindset in Brooklyn as to why fans are not showing up for a playoff series against the number 1 seed?
Well, I mean, it was a late arriving crowd. I know there were pictures out there, 10 minutes before tip-off, and it looked empty. But that's been the history of Brooklyn crowds. They show up like early in the second quarter. It's kind of odd. by the second quarter, it was mostly full. But my problem is that they're not loud enough. In the Toronto series last year, that became a big issue where the Raptors fans were way louder than the Nets crowd in Brooklyn. And, that's too bad. New York City has a reputation for rowdiness, and it just, I don't know if it's the acoustics of the building maybe, but it's just not loud enough. The Nets need a bigger home court advantage. I thought it would be different in Brooklyn. I thought it would be better in Brooklyn. So far, it hasn't been the case.
Do you feel like it's with these new stadiums, these new arenas, Mark, there's a feeling of like they're corporatized, they're for business America. I mean, in Dallas, that new Cowboy Stadium, I've been there, I worked there. It's incredible. It blows your mind. It is not loud. They're way too spread out. The screen's too big. It's for corporatized America. Do you get that feeling in Brooklyn?
That's probably part of it. And in fact, that's a knock on Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium. The media claims that it's nowhere near as loud as the old Yankee Stadium, the way it's built. And, the people going to the games, they're not diehard fans. They're there for the event, for the experience. But just generally speaking, Nets moving to Brooklyn, I thought they would gain a lot more fans. They have gained fans, but not as much as I thought, especially with the Knicks in a down period for the most part. They did have the great season 2 years ago, but for the most part, the Nets have had the playoff stage, last season and this season, and I don't think they've taken advantage of it as they should. Of course, they go in as the 8th seed, but again, if they could upset the Hawks and get to the second round, I think there'll be a lot of buzz about the team.
Marc Berman of the New York Post. And Mark, the fact that you even bring up the idea of the Nets upsetting the Hawks, that sounds like you have a little bit of optimism. Your feelings on the Nets winning this one tonight in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think they have a solid chance to win tonight, 2-2, and I think the Hawks, they don't have a lot of playoff experience, and I think they overachieved in the regular season. Again, Millsap is not 100%. Horford is not 100%. I mean, this is a great opportunity for this franchise. And again, both games in Atlanta were close. All the pressure is on Atlanta. The Nets are playing house money. I think it could be a real good series. If it goes Game 7, the game is in Atlanta. But I still think the Nets have talent. There's a lot of talent on this roster. Lopez has had a terrific stretch in the last 2.5 months. Joe Johnson is a clutch player. Jared Jack is thankfully making up for Deron's, ineffectiveness. They have players, and Atlanta again. This is not a playoff savvy club.
Marc Berman of the New York Post, at NYPost_Berman on Twitter. He's going to be at Game 4 between the Nets and the Hawks tonight in Brooklyn. Mark, I have this theory that when the Knicks are better, the Nets are more attractive. That when basketball as a whole is bigger in New York, it helps the Nets, especially a team that's only been in Brooklyn for 2 years. Would you agree that if the Knicks' popularity comes back, it would help the Nets in an indirect or maybe kind of direct way as well?
Yeah, just with the Islanders and Rangers. I mean, right now, all Ranger fans are going to be paying attention tonight to Game 7 in Washington because the winner faces the Rangers, and everyone wants to see an Islander-Ranger series. Same holds true with the Nets. It would be a bigger deal if the Knicks were in the playoffs and they could possibly meet in the second round. That Knicks-Nets rivalry should be much bigger. Again, for some reason, they've never been very good at the same time. It's one of those odd occurrences where they've never had a magical playoff series like the Islanders and Rangers have. Yeah, I agree. I think, basketball in this city, there's a lot of fans depressed over what happened to the Knicks this season, the worst season in history. The games were meaningless since December. So a lot of fans kind of turned away from the NBA. But, yeah, you're right. I think if the Knicks were better, it would help the Nets.
Mark, with the amount of bad decisions that Phil Jackson has made thus far into his tenure as the team's president of basketball operations and having the role that he's had, how much confidence do you have going into his second year that he can make the right decisions to get this thing right?
I'll tell you, I'm still amazed that Knicks fans have so much confidence in Phil, despite the fact he has no experience as a president and everything he's done has been the wrong move, starting with the Tyson Chandler trade. He's got this great reputation still in town. They still believe, that he's going to get this done. There's fans who support the whole quote-unquote tanking, which they pretty much did in January when they blew up the team. They need luck with the ping-pong balls. They really do need a shot at either Towns or Okafor, in my opinion, for it to make a big difference. And free agency, the marketplace, even though they have $30 million in cap space, the marketplace is in flux. The 2016 cap is going to be skyrocketing, and how that affects this summer is going to be very interesting to see how far Phil's money will go, whether the market is going to be very difficult for him to get three good free agents, or if it, remains stable. Even Phil is wondering that, after he signs his draft pick, he'll have $26 million in cap space. He wants to sign three guys. We'll see how much that money will take him.
Marc Berman of the New York Post. Mark, do the Knicks eventually have to get somebody just as good as Carmelo Anthony or better if they want to be one of the best teams in the East?
Well, Phil has a quandary on that situation. Does he spend $19 million of that cap space on one guy like LaMarcus Aldridge, or does he try to spread it out more evenly on three good players? Does he, he's not sure. Does he, again, Aldridge is a great player, and I think if he's willing to come, I think Phil would do it, but that's about it. Then he's got Carmelo. There's a lot of holes to fill, and Phil knows that, and that's why the theory of putting it all in one person's basket might not be the best way to go, although I think if you're going to put money in someone's basket, it's Aldridge, who would be a very good fit in the triangle.
Marc Berman of the New York Post. Follow him on Twitter at @NYPost_Berman. He's at the Nets-Hawks game tonight. He is a longtime Islanders fan, grew up on Long Island, so I bet you he'll be doing a little double take of that game as well, Game 7. Mark, I always appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, no problem. It's going to be a great sports night, and hopefully people will be switching back and forth from hockey to basketball.
You only thought your season was done once the Knicks were done, my friend, but you're ramping up. This is the best sports you've seen in 6 months. You kidding me?
No, you're right. After covering 3 months of meaningless games, it's been a treat to cover the Islanders and the Nets.
Bring it on, baby. Enjoy the night, Mark.
All right.